Hello, everybody, and welcome to the penultimate Type Thursday book club. We got a good one this week. This week, and my service, I knew it. I've had thunderstorm in my area, and my service is going bad. So, cameras, goodbye for me. I apologize for my beautiful voice for now. So with that said, hello, I am Thomas Jockin. I am the founder of Type Thursday. I'm here joined by Type Thursday's Los Angeles and Phoenix chapter leads, Michael and Matheo. Guys, great to see you.
Good to see you, Thomas. Hear you.
Good to hear you.
I know you're going to hear me today, unfortunately, not see me. Alas, the thunderstorms are taking me out in Pennsylvania, but that's okay. So what is Type Thursday? Type Thursday is a meeting place for people who love type. We meet in person at Type Crits in local cities. We currently have them in Phoenix and Los Angeles. Or restart one in a city near you. I know I lost my service one more time. But when we're not at physical Type Thursday events and Type Crits, we are here at the Type Thursday Book Club, and we're thankful for you joining us today. So this week, this book, and I recommend this book, I suggested this book as the type designer in the group, is Gerrit Noordzij, The Stroke Theory of Writing. This is a very influential book in type design. It's a book I've read many times. So I'm looking forward to the reviews and feedback from my colleagues this week. We're going to review this according to 5 categories: clarity of concepts, visual inspiration, practical application, typographic insight, and overall impact. Recording, we're going to find out what our ratings are live. So with that said, Michael, pass us over to the Fig Jam board. And I realized we did not declare a reporting order. So since I just saw Mateo's cursor go on, I'm going to vote for Matheo, myself, and then Michael.
Perfect.
You got it. Alrighty, everybody. I'm going to jump in with clarity of concepts, and that is how clearly are the ideas explained and arguments explained by the author, in this case, Gerrit. For me, as I read through this book in the beginning, it was really, really fuzzy for me. And I didn't really feel like a lot of the concepts were clear. But at the end, there's a summary explaining kind of how he framed his concepts. And I start to understand more clearly that, okay, this whole book is a clear explanation of, I'm going to land somewhere right around like a 4. And I was ebbing and flowing between like 3 and 4. So it might even be almost like a 3.8. And that's because in the beginning, I don't know if this is because things are lost in translation, because this book was translated from the author's native language, and there is an explanation by the translator in the back saying like, hey, we struggled on how we translated some of these concepts because there's just not a direct way to say it. And maybe that's where some of that vagueness was hitting me. But at the end, I felt like the author did a good job summarizing and telling us really the whole point of this book is understanding, the theory of writing systems through handwriting, through making with your hand, and really documenting very clearly how strokes are made with the nib of a tool or pen or pencil, and mapping those geometries across the page. So once I understood that at the very end of the book, I was kind of like, okay, a light bulb went off, ding, ding, ding. I'm kind of like, things are clicking, things are looking more clear, and I can kind of see how it all came together. So pretty interesting. Yeah. Experience for me. I'll pass.
Very good. Now, this safe suspense for me, this book gets a 5. Now, it's a little complicated, right? Because there are 2 major reasons why. One is gave up. Man, tonight's not my night in internet service. So I was given this book from Joshua Darn when I was an apprentice at Darn's studio back in 2006, around that time period. And it's interesting because even then, actually, the main feedback back then was to use the scribble method. Like I remember being taught this from Josh, and this book was the reinforcement of that. So basically articulating about stroke value by using a kind of scribble stroke articulation. So you can mimic understanding the broaden and pen logic and expansion logic of contrast, and then continuing and returning construction based on lost my service again. 15, 20 minutes later, I reread the book, and now I actually realize much deeper dimensions of what Gerrit was talking about. So yeah, obviously the geometric kind of walkthrough is what he's doing, but he's also justifying via that geometric understanding of the writing process to make letter forms, a rearticulation of history that, as opposed to a very hard break of what's called the Gothic and the Renaissance, he says they're the same logic. And the proper split was what's called the modernist or classicism, basically of almost a David or the French Republic kind of era. The visual form. Lost my connection again. Lost in the visual form of the difference of an expansionist model of contrast and that instrument of writing versus the broad nib. So I thought that was actually a much deeper cultural, social commentary that the author has embedded in this text. It's not even its primary purpose, the dramatic pauses. Yeah, it's because of the bad service. I apologize, Andrea. But that cultural, social articulation via just typographic understanding, this model he's presenting, it's, I think, a very clear concept when you reread. I reread this again recently, but even back when I was learning, the understanding of the geometric composition. I said, that's all for me. Again, I'm sorry that this is not my network connection.
No problem. It's funny because this is a perfect night for you to flex all of your knowledge here. So we'll definitely wait for you for sure. Yeah. So for me, is when I was reading this book, I realized, for all of the acquired knowledge that I've through typography and my passion for it, this book made me quickly realize there is a whole nother world out there. And I believe that my score is going to be, I'm going to put this right in the middle. I'm just going to give this a 3 because I feel that my knowledge is vast, but it's like, there's so much more to learn here. And these kind of brought up some topics that I did not even consider. And it also kind of made me revisit the history of this. And it's, making consistent angles across the page. It makes total sense. One of the first things that I remember being in like grade school and learning that, being right-handed, the way that my handwriting flows is much different than someone left-handed where they're going against the page. So even that kind of knowledge at a young age, it always stuck with me. And this really hammered it home. And I'd never considered why, these letter forms how did they even come to be? And, so this is extremely dense. It's academic. It's not an easy read, but I believe that if you're truly passionate about typography and looking for more ways to make typography and why these decisions were made, this is the book for you. But it is, again, the clarity of concepts is right in the middle for me because I feel like there's so much more to learn, and it might take a few times to do that.
I agree with you 100%, Michael. This book was very hard for me to understand and interpret in full until I got to the end when he kind of summarizes his points. I think Thomas having a mentor who introduced him to the book while also taking and learning, I guess, like typography and perhaps calligraphy, Thomas, I don't know, you can weigh in and say if you had learned that, maybe helped your understanding. And being able to translate what you learned. I don't know. But for me, it was like not having any, traditional guidance on that path. I was just like so confused until I got to the end. And he sort of like wraps up with some really cool visuals of like this cube, and it's on the cover. And he explains that the way he wrote the book is like diverging on the x-axis and the z-axis, and the y-axis is left for you as a designer to explore on your own after taking these readings. And yeah, I think there's some other cool stuff in here, like the typographic quality is dependent on the white of the word, and that is the point of departure of this theory on writing. And he kind of shows you in his final Textus example this beautifully written script that is with the negative space, the white space, is what makes it beautiful. And it finally brought it all together for me at the end, and it drove it home. And I was like, that's what moved me from a 3, because I was in that same position, Michael. I was like, this is like a 2 or a 3. And then I got to that final chapter, and I was like, and he gave me those visuals, and I was like, okay, you know what, you moved the needle for me. Not almost to a 5, but not quite to a 5. I feel like someone's going to pick this book up. They need a lot of other help, guidance, mentorship, other books, learnings, visualizations to get there. But for me, that's why I landed right smack at like that 3.8 to 4 rating, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm back, everybody. My internet just told I'm praying that my hotspot phone will save me on this one. We'll find out. But with that said, I will say that Matheo, when I unfortunately lost all of Michael's commentary, so I was gone for that whole section. So yeah, I apologize. But I did hear Mateo's reply, and absolutely, this does require background knowledge. So I would recommend. Okay, I lost connection again. What was the last thing everyone heard?
You recommend.
Oh, almost everything. Sheila Walters' Foundations of Calligraphy. So because that text was also given to me at the time I read Gerrit Noordzij, this text, The Stroke, that was a very important background text to articulate even more what Gerrit's not talking about. So that's the thing. This book is basically like everybody's boot camp into calligraphy training via a very rationalist geometric presentation. So I had that when I read it, and type designers will typically read Sheila's book. Highly recommend it. Out of the ambiguities, but I do agree with Matheo that it is the closing chapter that brings it all home. Like no one understands what he's doing with this move. It's way too abstracted until he gets to the construction cube, right? That's a very famous cube. So I think that's where he really clinches it in terms of articulating what he's doing, like what you get with this concept, like with this model of articulation. I agree with that.
Sounds like we've got a book for season 2.
Yeah. So let's go to our next visual inspiration.
Oh yeah, I'm jumping.
It was up first.
So as you heard me explain in my argument on clarity of concepts, one of the things that helped me in this book was the visual inspiration, like the cube that is a diagram, but that helped really drive the concepts home to understand it better visually. And the examples of different calligraphy strokes that he breaks down throughout the entire book. And there's so many like favorites that I had just never really understood, like this, and others that I was just like, okay. At first, I was looking at this book and I'm like, this is going to score 1 on visual inspiration for me. But as I got through the book and I understood the visuals and how they move the concepts along and give you more clarity and insight, then I was like, you know what? I'm actually going to land myself probably right at a solid 3. It's not the book that you're coming to as a designer for visual inspiration on how to approach a design, not even for how to get visually inspired for your next typeface, but the visual inspiration comes from the way that he breaks down explaining the problem, and how he also shows you plenty of wonderful examples, like this one being, that go along with the explanation of the nib and the path that the nib follows, like the front line, also known as the heart line. I didn't know that before. And then also if you're changing angles, why the line width changes, and he breaks that down visually for you. I had never seen that broken down so clearly. And it started to help, especially having the Martina Floor's Golden Secrets of Lettering, Ken Barber's Lettering Manual, them talking about, hey, here's a technique to use. And he goes, Gerrit goes into, here's why these strokes occur and these angles occur the way that they do, and geometrically breaks it down. I had not seen that yet. So very well done visually in that regards.
To build on what Matheo said, I think here, it gives us to kind of stack this. I'm a 4 on this one. And the reason why is because, in addition to what Matheo said, in terms of the diagramming purposes, I think the other aspect about it, actually, I'm a little further away than I wanted to be. There you go. Beyond lost again. Besides the diagrams that Matheo pointed out, and really helping and clarify his ideas, is that all of the calligraphy, the writing samples he's showing you are showing you all of the models he's talking about. And in fact, I remember doing this when I first read this book as a junior designer. I reproduced the text to follow the model that he was talking about. So when Matheo says this is a book for visual inspiration, it's you reproduce the samples to understand, how am I understand the pen angle? How am I understanding pressure? How am I understanding contrast, etc., spacing? These are all handwritten by me. Oh, and by the way, another important detail, the body copy of this text is from Gerrit. It's he's not produced many typefaces, but it is from him. And it actually is an expansionist typeface, but it's actually a very beautifully readable typeface, by the way. He shows his master. It's a set. I consider that in some of those sense, I should almost put it a 5 for those reasons, but I will say it would be the type designers who want to train in this will get a lot from this. But for the general graphic designers, you'll be impressed with the diagramming and the general visual ability of the writing ability of Gerrit, but you won't get House Industry Ken Barber or Martina Flores' work. So for that reason, I gave it a 4.
Yeah, Thomas, I think that I'm right with you. I think I'm going to put this right at a 4 as well. So when I was looking at the diagrams, the one thing that I noticed was, it's revealing the hidden mechanics behind the letter forms. And I believe that if you were to read this, it'll completely change how you even look at letters going forward. And it definitely did me. When I was starting, I'm doing a branding project, and I'm working with a lot of letters that are kind of difficult, especially when they're on an arc. And so the one thing that I had to consider was, kind of how when I explain to people like these are all shapes, it makes sense to them. But I think this goes so much further into the, how these actually letter forms are built and why they're built that way. And I think that is one of the strengths of this. Again, for me, as someone who's a type enthusiast as well, to see that the extra mechanics behind it was really kind of fascinating. And I think we're really lucky to have this book, and it definitely changed the way that I'm going to approach things going forward. And that says something, because we're kind of biased because we're all really big into typography. But when I explain this, I'm going to use these concepts a lot in the way that I break everything down.
Very beautifully said, you guys. I almost wanted to rank this a 5 when I read that the whole book is typeset in his typeface that he designed. The author designed this typeface, and it's beautifully designed. And why? Why is this typeface so beautifully designed? I say that because as you're reading the book, this was one of the easiest books to read as far as the typesetting was so well done to the point where your eyes could just go. I think this was the fastest book I've read. And yes, it's a pretty small book. And when you open it up, you can see that the typeface is it's really clean. It's really simple. It almost looks like they picked Georgia, but then as you're reading it and you examine the typeface, you realize, wait, that's something else. It's something I haven't seen before, but it's helping me read. It's helping me learn along. And the measure, which is the width of the paragraph length, is so perfectly set to where your eyes can just naturally flow without having to go way too long, like they did in How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul.
How to Be a Graphic. I was just thinking that How to Be a Graphic Designer Without Losing Your Soul.
Boom. So hard to read. So I almost gave this 5 for that reason, but then I was like, okay, it's not a graphic design book where you're coming for like logos that last, where it was like visual.
Mhm.
Thomas, I'm glad you knew what I was hearkening at.
Oh, absolutely. That book was horrendous. That was a horrendous reading experience. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, also it's almost like Bringhurst's Annals and Typographic Style, like again, where the book typesetting itself is the visual inspiration.
Yeah.
So, under those reasons, I really probably should have been reflecting on that a little more. I probably should have bumped up to a 4.5 or even a 5. I think I was a little worried about being too much of a fanboy by just blasting 5.
Yeah. Yep. Didn't want to fanboy out too much.
Well, you don't have very many of those moments, Thomas. So it's like
Yeah.
I think you have a
You
few
earned
in
it.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm usually the hater of the group. It's very fair. I have a reputation to maintain. I can't be too enthusiastic. With that said, shall we continue?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out, let's see. So for practical application and usefulness in professional practice or teaching, I unfortunately was going to land at a 2, but then I was like, well, no, not quite, because if I'm going to go from this book to designing a typeface, it gave me a ton of information and ideas and new approaches that were broken down very nicely. But at the same time, he doesn't even touch what I felt like was I think sans serif, and he really stays away from sans serif with like a lot of disdain and rage and just like ignores that entirely. So it's like, okay, this isn't the best practically applicable for like if I want to know all things. So I landed pretty much on a solid 3 here. And one of the reasons I landed on a 3, I felt like, was because of all these diagrams that he shows us where he breaks down visually the construction of each letter form. So he's showing us the construction of the letter N is made up of these different strokes and then the angles, and how that all comes together visually. And then also describes why the downstroke and upstroke and this like returning stroke, and the lines kinds of creates this visual form that resembles handwriting, but also just creates a beautiful, elegant form. And so that changed the way that I approach and think about typography and what a beautiful font is. And then he goes on a complete rant about the digitization of fonts and the no, what is it? Just no basis in reality of handwriting at all types of letter forms where just like a really super thin spaghetti string stroke. And it was just funny, and on those rants that he goes on. So for practical application, that's why I'm at a 3. I wasn't quite at a 5. Definitely didn't want to land at a 2, but yeah.
So again, my bias is kicking in. So it depends what we're talking about. If we're talking about a type design course, this is a 5. It's not even a debatable. It might even be a 6. I want to talk about it that way in terms of its application, the type designer. If you're a graphic designer, it does actually have a lot. Now, it's almost like this book in combination with the other books we've read in the series, in the season so far, and maybe some additions from season 2 in aggregate. Like if you have a lettering purpose or a logo type purpose, no, but it is useful still, even in a general sense. So for those reasons, when you put those aspects together, it's a 4.5 in my opinion for those reasons. If you're a type designer, this book is not even a question. You probably already have it. You don't need me to tell you to go get this book, right? But for the graphic designer, for the letter kind of typographically minded designer who manipulates letters and uses them in a direct way, this book is absolutely one of the most practical. It is a very important scaffolded text. You're going to need other things to help you along the way, but it is incredibly, it will have big applications in your life. A lot of the secondary literature, like basically, I think Martina feedback to support you. And those books were very practical too. So for those reasons, I'm giving it a strong rating, 4.5.
Yeah, you both said it so well. I'm actually going to be right here where Matheo is. I can see why this book is so influential, because you're right, Thomas. If you're going to design typefaces, letter forms, I mean, this is the go-to. And obviously, there's a sequel to it, which I'm super excited to read as well. But learning about this, it's not going to. If you're just a graphic designer, this is not probably going to be the book for you. If you're designing a brochure, a website, this isn't the one to go to. But of course, if you're designing anything typography based, yeah, this is the go-to. So I think it's if it was strictly for designing for typography, obviously 6, just like Thomas said. But yeah, right in the middle for most everyone that's coming into this as a traditional graphic designer. So that's where I'm going to put it, right in the middle.
Pretty spot on, I would say, rating all around. And, you know, after Thomas, you explaining, you know, from a type designer's perspective, who's solely, you know, in design for that purpose, this book is the de facto, right away. And it's going to score it like I would say an all-time a 5 or 6 out of, so yeah, I think for those reasons that you hit the nail on the head. There's going to be people like myself come into the industry as a graphic designer, you know, worked in web design, UX, UI, where it's like learned how to, throughout my career, had to manipulate type. And a lot of times we manipulate type and we're like, oh, it looks off. Why does it look off? This is probably why. So this book can help you maybe get it to where it feels more optically correct. And it talks a lot about the balancing of the negative space. You know, the space that's not there is what's going to truly lead to a beautiful typographic execution.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point. I think this is a question. I think things like Bringhurst. I think things like this in connection with Bringhurst would be a really smart move, because Bringhurst gives you the grant, like to the application side of typesetting. This text explains even more detail why the letter forms are working the way they do, when they work well, when they don't work well. So I actually want to almost tell anyone who's more the general typographer to combo, basically build off, read Bringhurst, and then come read this, and then go back to Bringhurst again. And I think it'll do you very well.
Yeah, so and it kind of teaches typography as kind of like physics, and I think that's probably, that could be intimidating to someone that doesn't just picks, you know, typefaces that look good or think that they go with that project. But it definitely goes in depth, and I think it's worth the reading to learn more about it, because it's only going to strengthen your eye as far as like why things don't work, like Matheo said.
And Thomas, it's funny that you said that about going back to Bringhurst, because after I finished this book, my first inclination was to pick up Bringhurst, the type Bible again, and go back, because I was like, wait, now my mind is expanded. I want to compound the knowledge, like Michael said, the way it's explained, like friggin' physics or
Yeah, type physics.
type physics. He explains the type physics and geometry, and I also am kind of like, I almost want like another class in geometry to compound the learning even more, so I can truly, refresh on all the knowledge, and then begin to just change. I think I'm feeling it, this change in the way that I approach and look at designs, because of the knowledge from Bringhurst and from all the books, but especially from Bringhurst and the stroke right now. So yeah.
Yeah, I struggle
Shout out to
actually.
the group.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say shout out to the grid section and Bringhurst's book, Shape of the Page. It's very strong.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I struggled in geometry in high school, and I honestly, I wish I would have been taught about, like, for instance, like letter forms. I would have loved to learn like why, different angles, different, thicks to thins, like how it all works and the flow of something that looks really beautiful. Like what's the measurements of this? And I think that this is a perfect example of, like, explaining it really eloquently.
To actually build on that, there's a section about, and I lecture about line and point symmetry in the Latin script. And actually just a justification for a higher practical application reading is things like, if you have the D, you have the P. If you have the B, you have the Q, lowercase form, because you can just rotate 180 degrees and you have the correct distribution of weight and shape and all that, with some modification typically of A center to D center.
Yeah, I do that a lot, where I break apart letters and use those same letter forms for other letter forms, make it unique. So you're absolutely right on that. We go into the next one, typographic insight. I wonder what this is going to be.
Gee whiz, I wonder. Matheo, take the floor.
All right, bam. Let me dive in. So I was gonna rank it a solid 5, but then when I kind of like re-examined it, I was just like, again, he doesn't cover really anything about the sans serif font creation. Just kind of like hates on it. So, and then I was down at a 4, but I was kind of like, it feels, this book is full of typographic insights. So I'm somewhere at like a 4.5 when I landed on it at the very end. And one diagram that I really wanted to lean in and show is this diagram that's in the foreword, which I kind of skipped over at first, but when I finished the book, I went back to and read. And I realized this has a lot of useful information, because he's just kind of breaking down a diagram of like what the running translation typefaces look like versus what the running interrupted typefaces look like versus the running expansion and the running interrupted. And once you read the book, you will understand what those things mean. I didn't understand what those things meant in the beginning. I'm glad I skipped this forward and then came back and read it at the end, because it made so much more sense finally. And I was like, oh, this is why I gravitate towards, when I want something to look like super fancy and invitation, I gravitate towards calligraphy, something that's like an translation running typeface design. And versus if I want something that looks like just, legal formal, why do I gravitate towards something that's expansion interrupted, right? So yeah, I think this book kind of helped me understand why, as a designer, I gravitate towards a lot of things, and just explain so many of the typographic insights that kind of see visually, but someone finally breaking it down geometrically in this beautiful way. This book is, done so well. And something like this, even breaking down the way that like type is cast in metal, and then how it makes an impression on the page. And he just diagrams for you the way that the letters are formed, and explains kind of why that changes things, the properties of it. So that was really amazing to see.
So not gonna be a very big surprise for me. This guy's getting a 5. Very clean, straightforward shot with me. I think I can say again, the Type 9 perspective, it is the book. Basically me, part of me being a hater for almost all the other books this season has been because I knew this book was coming. Because I'm like, what everyone's talking about, either directly because he went to the KBAK, the academy where he taught, where Gerrit taught, they either went to that school or know the people who went to that school and were in that conversation. Points because I knew this book was coming. So this is the text in terms of that a quite frankly modern contemporary type design has been forever changed because of this book. We have good friends who we know very well who absolutely just like have a lot of umbrage about this model of typography type design, but generally it is still very influential and very insightful. So I think in terms of any other book that you've read that you felt very clear of how to use letter forms in a constructive way, that especially if you were not trained formally in calligraphy, is in thanks of this book. So as a result, do it well, and when the guys look at them, they got their insights from this text. Like even things like, for example, we don't have, for example, Ono Type's James Edmondson's book. We don't have that on this list. We might have it for season 2. But for example, like he borrowed a concept, he presented, it's not really his concept originally, but he popularized it, the rule of 3, which is a derivative basically of Gerrit's point about spacing. The idea is that you can basically, when you judge the spacing of letters, you look in pairs of 3 and you move across a word and you ask, is this letter in the middle of the 3 in the middle, or is it tip to the right or tip to the left? And you adjust accordingly. That's a derivative. It's a very useful concept, but it's derivative of each other. That's the same concept. It's just a different articulation of it. So for those reasons, this book is the gold mine of insight for typography when it comes to the letter form making process. So for those purposes, it gets a 5 for me.
Love it. Well, it's going to be a crowded space right here. Let me see if I can just get right there. I'm going to put a 5 in there. You know, the one thing that really stuck out to me was this argument that, you know, type is essentially like frozen writing. And I never really kind of thought about it that way. And it's kind of, you know, it kind of reshaped about like how I kind of view this now. And, you know, the more that I read and do more introspection about, you know, these different typography concepts, you know, I'm finding all these really great, you know, quotes that come out. And it again, I'm a type enthusiast and I try to learn as much as I can about letter forms. But it also helped me kind of understand, you know, the relationship between handwriting, calligraphy, and typography, which is, you know, very hard to explain. If you were to actually just try to do that with someone, they'd probably zone out and not listen to you anymore. But I can see how this book is so influential, and it really dives deep into the understanding of typography. So again, a 5. I don't think that we were going to have anything middle of the road on this one.
Yeah, again, the major note for me is basically take this with Bringhurst. You got yourself a great type education. Like I feel like you've got yourself a large base covered.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, Michael, we're at Type Thursday. We're the kind of people who get excited about these differences and nuances of like typography and hand lettering and calligraphy. But even there, like I have had someone early in my career, or when I started to discover Type Thursday, someone trying to explain those differences to me, and I was just like, what? My head was spinning, you know. And so the years later, I wrap my head around it. Now reading these books, I really have a clear understanding of it, but also in the practice of calligraphy rehearsal, you see the connections between calligraphy and the motion of the hand to typography and the way that letters are sort of crafted in some cases, right? Because there's a whole argument that he makes here that is like, in some of these typefaces just say, screw all and don't even bother, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, you'll definitely have a different appreciation for typography if you have to build your own system. And I think that if you didn't have this, like, you wouldn't know where to start. Like, I feel like just even just kind of knowing the basics of this, even though it's again, it's dense, and it's not for it's not for everybody. But I again, like, learning more and going deeper into this is really fascinating.
Yeah.
Going on.
Yeah.
Overall impact.
Alrighty, fam. Let's jump in here. So for overall impact, the way that the author explains the concepts and the way that it all comes together at the end of the book, there's this reflection and this aha moment that I had where I can see there's a lasting relevance and influence on the design field, because I haven't seen any other author detail the history of evolution of calligraphy and handwriting into typography. And he challenges you to rethink about the way that it's been history has been documented. He challenges you to think about, I think it was, the Dark Ages and the Middle Ages, and how there's this sort of like just kind of clustering things together and claiming that there's this history and study of letter forms it's done and over. And he's like, no, this is still an issue. This is still evolving. There's still more to be discovered. There's still a lot of things that aren't clarified. And he's sort of changing the frame of thinking and changing the narrative. And for that reason, I landed on a solid 5. I was like, okay, this book is just doing the damn thing and making us change the way we look at our industry.
And as the entire type industry has. Oh, okay. I thought you were done. Wow, my connection is doing real bad right now. So I'm just gonna be quick.
That's it. That's it for me. Go ahead.
Okay, got you. Okay, we're going in. It's a 5. From what I heard from Matheo, I totally agree with everything he's saying. The entire type industry is indebted to this book, like in terms of our entire practice. It's informed from this. This text is basically our origin point for contemporary thought, and it's actually still being developed. So, for example, this model, because its writing origin priority, allows for non-Latin focus. So people have applied this model in Arabic as well. So these script systems. So the very fact that even though this book is incredibly ethnocentric, like, it's aggressive, it is extremely aggressive in its ethnocentrism. It's actually, there's one section where he's basically making a very strong stance in contrast to the Islamic tradition, specifically the relationship of the black and the white. He's making a charge, slightly ignorant, thinking that, oh, well, all Arabic is literature, it's all black. That's not totally true. There are letters that don't connect, and negative space. And I can show you 1,000 calligraphy diagrams from Arabic that clearly they understand negative space. And they are thinking that same mode of the negative spaces would hold the letter together. They are thinking that.
I'll jump in. Again, this is going to be a very crowded space. I think that I'm going to. Oh, you can actually see me right here. Again, a 5. I love.
Okay, I am back. What was the last thing everyone heard?
I don't know. I already went into mine.
Michael jumped in to share his. Sorry.
Awesome. Tom. All right, ignore me, please. I'm back. Hi, Michael. Continue, please.
Yeah, I mean, I love, like, the central kind of thesis of this, that, every typeface can be understood through the logic of the stroke and the movement that created it. I mean, that hits hard. when Thomas was talking about Arabic, when you're talking about kanji, when you're talking about, I mean, I love getting different like t-shirts that are in different languages just because of how cool the typography looks. I look at like things like even Armenian. Armenian is a perfect example of like I have no idea what it says, but it's just so beautifully um, uh, illustrated sometimes. And I also like how they, so you have these letters, but then you make like the pop version of that. You know, what is the Arabic version of like, you know, kind of making it cartoonish? I think that that's kind of a fascinating concept. So this is where we kind of stop seeing letters as shapes and starting to see the evidence of motion through these. And that's what gets me excited about typography. I didn't even realize it. I go, that's what I love. It's literally like, you know, turning it on its side so it like has movement to it. But then the swashes and all the different things that you can bring into it, the different you know, ball terminals and, you know, different things that you can put into it. It's like it's a complete typography package. But why does it work? It's because of these concepts that are in this book.
Yeah, Michael, that was one of the pages that I flagged where the author is explaining kind of like modulation, is it? How the sine wave angle basically changes, right? And how that changes the flow of the stroke, like Michael's saying here, and like what comes out, and just the architecture of the letter changes and shifts. And you said it so beautifully, Michael, like it's universal to how, you know, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans, how Arabs, like how Armenians, how all humans approached, you know, making some, you know, visual language through strokes. And I like his argument that he made about they're basically you know, logos, like logo forms almost, like, or he uses a better term than that, but each little character is its own, you know, understanding and symbol, and we're able to interpret that. And some languages do that better than others, and English isn't always even the best one, you know, phonetically that's pronounced, and some others are more pictograms, and that was the word he uses, pictograms. Like the kanji is very, you know, pictogram driven, where it's like we draw a forest in the form of strokes, and that's, you know, the word for tree or forest. And it's yeah, I think I never liked history in school. I didn't like having to memorize dates and like wars and battles, but learning about this history of the strokes and calligraphy and writing systems has gotten me to become like a nerd, where I'm just like, oh my, I'm loving this. I also struggled in geometry and math classes as well. So I'm like, oh man, but now I'm seeing the value of like understanding the geometry. And in design, it's all that. It's all geometry and math, you know, underlying in the underlying form. So it's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I love history. I'm a big baseball nerd, so like, I love all that history. So like, I didn't think that I liked history, but I actually found out I love history. But the one thing that this book does, it teaches you how to. Most typography books teach you how to use type, but this book teaches you, you know, why these letter forms look the way they do, and the science behind it. I think that's the cool part about this as well.
That's really interesting way to put it, Michael. You're right. A lot of the books tell you how to use type or play with type, but this book tells you like how to look at it and why is it that way, you know? Yeah. Thomas?
There's an entire Harry talks about as a whole. I think it's in the beginning part. He talks about how you have to see in theory, right? So if I think it's actually a big takeaway is that for most of us in the arts, we went into the arts because we ran away from math and we ran away from history, science, all that. But it's ironic, and the great irony, this book actually gives you a whole new articulation to come back to it. And there is a subcategory, there is a subpopulation of designers that got very interested in via geometry, got very interested in science, analysis, and articulation in this kind of analytic.
Yeah, I might have said this before. Whenever I teach my students, I say like I was terrible in math. Like one of my first math classes in high school was Introduction to Algebra. Introduction. Like they didn't even teach me before that. And I say to them, as a graphic designer, I use math every single day because I have to. And so getting good at it is important, but also like this is a perfect example of this. Is like, you know, why geometry matters, why these numbers matter.
Yeah, and proportion. Why? Because
Proportion,
in math,
yeah.
I hated fractions and fractional numbers and all that stuff and division. And now it's like I divide every day because I'm like,
Right.
here's my primary heading. Let's divide that by 2 or 3 or 4 to come up with like a heading set where they're proportional and related to each other. So all things are divisible by the common denominator. And I'm like, oh my God, I hated this stuff in school, and here I am like loving it now because it's explaining why this design system works, this typography system works, Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas talking about the threes. I mean, that makes total sense, right?
Yeah. Kerning and tracking kerning pairs and threes. I hadn't heard that one yet. I know look at it as like water volume between the letters and pour water between each letter, try to even out the volume of water. I like that visual, and Martina Floor did a good job expressing that in her book, but I hadn't seen yet the look at the pairs and threes, because when you're kerning, you're looking at the 2, right? But then something else pops out of place because you kern those those 2 letters really nicely, but then all of a sudden your other one's like looking funky.
Are you there, Thomas?
Yeah, I'm here. Unfortunately, the service is doing really not well. So I think we're ready to transition.
All right, let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's spin the wheel.
Spin that wheel. And don't forget to like and subscribe while we're spinning that wheel. Smash that like button. Helps us out a ton. And cost you none. Woo. So invent a fictional blurb from a famous typographer. What would they say?
Which typographer? That's what I'm thinking. Which one? Eric Spiekerman would instantly, of course, Eric Spiekerman would love this book. He would talk. It would. You basically say there's no other book to read. Like, this is the best book to read. I think Eric Spiekerman would definitely say that. Who else? I can think of a bunch of people. That's the first one that came in my mind.
I think for me, John Baskerville would be like, F off. And that would be his only saying. Because the author really riffs on Baskerville. Just being like, well, screw you for completely foregoing all things that are made by hand and making your cuteness over there. But yeah, so F off. Baskerville.
Baskerville. Who knew that people had such hate? There's so much hate. How about Robert Bringhurst? How about before there was typography, there was writing, and not to forget, the difference. That's
Bringhurst actually makes a statement. He says typography is idealized writing. I remember him saying that.
Oh, okay.
Wow. That's right.
What to do with that? That's the second question. But yes, I think Bringhurst will definitely talk about that.
Typography is idealized writing. Yeah. Andre is using Baskerville right now for a project. We picked up on that at the same time, Michael. That's so funny. I love it. I always thought Baskerville was very beautiful, as well as the Bodoni, the other fonts out there that are based on it, like Asanas. And this was the first time where I had a type designer criticize Baskerville, and I was like, wait a second. Kind of made me re-examine Baskerville in a way where I'm like, but if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have certain aesthetic. So it's interesting. Yeah.
I keep in mind too.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
I know as soon as I talk, he's gonna come back.
yeah, Michael exactly is in tune.
Yeah, when I was first starting my career out in Los Angeles, like Baskerville was like being used a lot. So
everywhere.
I was never a person that used it a lot for that reason, because it was being
Yeah,
overused.
it's being overused.
Well, it's also
Yeah.
being revived. And you guys remember Mrs. Eves?
Oh, of course.
The softer, more delicate rendition of Baskerville.
Right.
Now,
No, that makes total sense.
I think it's important to remember to also keep in mind that. Am I here? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really pretty.
So even though Noordzij is dunking on expansionist models like Bringhurst, like Baskerville and Didon, the text he set in is expansionist. Keep that in mind. Like the typeface that is set by him. So it's not like, I don't think his issue necessarily he says all of them are bad. In fact, actually, this text is actually his typesetting of this font with this font shows you can make a readable text.
Yeah.
It's very possible. It's just a matter of how you articulate your positive and negative space. And typically the main problem usually with these genres is that's typically the problem. The too bright.
Say that again. Say that again. The typical problem is
they're too bright. The contrast between thick and thins are too extreme. So they're meant for larger typesetting purposes.
Oh, and his is not extreme. The contrast of this typeface that he uses the whole book is very neutral, would we say? It's not, yeah.
It's moderate. There's some contrast, but moderate.
It's really beautiful. The more I look at it, and it's so easy to read. So it's very well designed.
Hold on.
Yeah.
No.
Just trying to find the page where he dunks on these like really tiny thin lines. He goes hard. I think I basically did a double take. I read the paragraph once and then read it again because I was like, did he really just say that? did he go that hard on these people? It was funny. Yeah, I can't find it. Alrighty. Great book. Great book. Yeah. Alrighty, fam. Well, for season 1, we are coming.
Sorry, gang. I know connection cut. I apologize. Yeah, no Matheo, take it from here.
I'll take it over. For season 1, we are coming to a close, and as we're approaching the finish line, we decided as a team and as a community, since all you fans have been watching along with us, that we would love to do a season 1 recap with you all, and that's going to be on July 2nd. Before that, we have the Typography Idea Book, which will be next Thursday. So we've got another book to read in the week between now and next. And on June 25th, Type Thursday will be in person. And after that in-person event, we will be online for the recap, a special edition. Lots of fun things to come. So thank you guys for tuning in. Definitely like and subscribe. It helps us and supports the growth. We've talked about doing some cute little engagements. We hope the more that you like and subscribe, the more we'll try to come up with some fun things for y'all. So show us some love. This design is designed by the Type Thursday LA team member, Max Schotestein. So I want to say shout out to Max. And the team of us came up with the idea to do game design. And so this is kind of a fun little game design to show you that June 25th, we're going to be in person for Type Thursday LA at HMCT Art Center, our home, our headquarters for LA. And we're excited. Thank you to the team at HMCT for having us. Early bird tickets are on sale right now, which means you can save almost $20 if you buy now. So it's $10 early bird. You'll save about $20. So if you're not buying so you don't wait last minute, and you get pizza, networking, food, drinks, snacks, cookies, and awesome visual inspiration from the 3 presenters who will show work. And you, as the audience member, get to get feedback and share your ideas with us. So follow us on Type Thursday LA on Instagram, and follow Type Thursday Phoenix on Instagram at Type Thursday. Is it PHX, Michael?
Yes. And
So
yeah, I look
ahead.
forward to that. And some great people there at Type Thursday LA. So again, we're all passionate about typography. So if you are too, please consider going. For Thomas Jockin, for Matheo Cadena, I'm Michael Mondragon. We will see you next week for another Type Thursday Book Club. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.